Dave Lochran and my man, Adam Shaw, talking a little basketball. 3-game slate Thursday night, 8 p.m. tip, however. So keep that in mind. We've got Golden State, Toronto, Indiana, LA Lakers, LA Clippers, and Sacramento. Only 3 games, Adam, and some of them maybe not the most enticing, but man, that Clippers Sacramento Kings game with its plump 236 total and 2 super fast paced squads and a bunch of guys that they're not all underpriced, but they're definitely priced where you can fit many of them in game stack situations as well. What do you make of this slate at first glance?
For a 3-game slate, I don't think it's terrible. I mean,
Yeah, it could be
the
worse.
last game, the Clippers game, I think obviously is the most appealing, but at least it's I don't know, like the Golden State Toronto game isn't the best because it's Golden State Toronto, but Indiana and the Lakers should be okay, and then the Clippers game's I think a good one. So it could certainly be worse. And most importantly, none of other than Indiana, none of the teams that I hate are playing.
All right. Switcher says, "Laffy got the sexy hair today." Man, I haven't been able to get a haircut in like, I'm not joking. I think 2 months. 2 months, man. 2 months.
How is that what your hair looks like after 2 months?
No, I got a haircut today, bro.
Okay. I was just like, what?
No. I got
Like, what the hell did it look like 2 months ago?
right. What is that? How are the sides so short?
Right.
Oh shit. All right. Glad to have all you guys with us. Only what? We got 3 games, a bunch of people in here hanging out, and we got let's see. You threw me off, bro. You threw me off big time. Let's just jump right into it. Let's go Golden State, Toronto. We got ourselves a 223 total here, 223 and a half. Curry's coming back on Saturday. Dre's out at least 2 more games. And we have a pretty significant spread. Toronto by 9 points. I think earlier in the day it was 8, so it keeps moving in their favor. I want to know first, though, what are you doing with Kawhi? Because he's not super expensive. It's a 3-game set, so you're going to have to make some exceptions. You and I have not been high on playing him at that like high 9K, even mid 9K range when there's like 8, 9, 10 games. Do you make an exception here against the Warriors?
Kind of site dependent for me, I think, because I don't love the spot for him. It's against a Golden State team that's been playing insanely slow without Curry or Draymond. But I don't love the spot for LeBron. I don't love the spot for Durant. And so I think that the price tag at least is appealing if I can't get all the way up to those guys, but especially on FanDuel where it's just a weak position. I think that paying up at that spot and then saving money at other spots probably makes a lot of sense.
I think so too. We'll see. What I want to know, and I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I don't really care. With Kevin Durant, it's tough because this matchup is not good. Josh and I talked about it on today's strategy show. It's not good. But in the same breath, it's like Kevin Durant has near 40% usage with Curry and Dre off the court. And really the only way this game stays competitive is if he has a monster game. Or of course, if Clay goes off for 50, his bi-monthly blow up game. So what do you do with the 2 top guys here? We talked a bit about Leonard. What about Kevin Durant? Because it's him, it's LeBron James, and it's Leonard. Curry's out, Oladipo's out. So you look outside of Leonard, there isn't a single player within $1,000 of him until you get to Tobias Harris at 8,200 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, I have Durant and LeBron projected almost identically. Durant obviously a little bit more expensive, but I have him as the highest scoring player on the slate by like a point over LeBron. So really, for me, it'll come down to ownership. Like, I don't think that either of them should be much higher owned than the other, where they're very, very similarly priced. I do kind of expect, though, that you'll see more ownership on LeBron just because he's a little bit cheaper and he's not a 9-point underdog with the lowest implied total on the slate. So if that's the case, then I would gladly go to Durant. I think LeBron has the higher floor, though. He is the home favorite. His team has a implied total 5 points higher, and he just contributes in every category. But for Durant, and I think you mentioned it, since Curry went out, he has a 38% usage rate. And
Yep.
it's just really difficult to project LeBron with any kind of regularity to go into a game and have that kind of usage where, that we expect out of Durant. So I think from just a total, raw ceiling standpoint, Durant is the one that I would prefer, especially if he's going to be lower owned.
Yeah, we're on the exact same page here. It's not about the matchup. It's about, first of all, tell me it's not strange seeing the Warriors as 9-point dogs
in a game with like with quote unquote only a 223 total.
Right, exactly. It's crazy, but that's what you get when Curry's out, when Dre's out. I still look at Durant here, and you just can't ignore. You can't ignore the usage. You have the minutes. You're going to get, if this game stays competitive, even remotely competitive, and I still think Durant and Clay, these guys are good enough to make it a game. You're getting around 40 minutes from him. You're getting 38.1% use, 38.4% since Curry went down. Dre's only played 2 of those games, so I'm factoring in just that whole stretch. I mean, I could definitely take Green out, but it's easier this way. It'll be right around the same. And then fantasy point-wise, 1.54 fantasy points per minute. These are flat-out elite numbers. So, yes, the matchup factors in, but we also, of course, only have 3 games. So you have to make some exceptions, and you have to make some changes from your regular routine.
Right. So you agree with me, LeBron's the guy to play in cash because he doesn't have to deal with Kawhi and he's a little bit cheaper.
100%.
And that you should just play the ownership game between them in tournaments.
100%. Yep. Absolutely. Because I think, as you mentioned, from like a raw fantasy point, a raw ceiling standpoint, it's not that I won't say Durant has a higher ceiling than LeBron because we've seen LeBron put up monster numbers. We know what he can do. But the difference is that LeBron James doesn't have almost 40% usage.
Right. So basically it comes down to when you talk about the ceiling, they both obviously have just, enormous ceilings, but the probability of Durant getting to his is probably higher than LeBron because there's just going to be more games where Durant comes out and shoots the ball 30 times than LeBron does.
All right, so we got that out of the way. You want to give me a final take on Kawhi, just kind of like where you think you're settling here, because it's not easy, and he's not. I don't know. I'm not that. I know people like Kawhi here, and it's a good price. My thing is, it's just so hard for me to group him in the same category as Durant or even LeBron.
Right, and that's where I'm at as well. I do think one thing that'll matter a lot in how much I actually like Kawhi, and hopefully we have news before lock. I have no idea if we will, but it's Marcin Gortat status.
Yep.
Because if I can pay $3,500,
play both.
Right. Wait, what?
Go ahead. Maybe we have a different interpretation of where you're going here. If you can pay $3,500, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can pay all the way down to Boban and have a massive ceiling there, it just makes it really easy to get from Kawhi up to Durant or LeBron. Whereas if I lose what right now is like the only good value play on the slate that you can really feel confident about, it's harder. You're sacrificing more to get up to Durant or LeBron.
I thought you were talking about trying to play both, and I think that would be pretty difficult.
Oh, right, yeah.
With Boban, Durant, and Leonard, you have 5,200 remaining per player on DraftKings. It's not very easy. It's doable, but like you just well, another thing too, with Lonzo Ball, do we know? I mean, I get it. He said the other day he was going to play, but that was after the game.
He went through shoot around.
He did go through shoot around. Okay. Full participant then, huh? All right.
Yeah. I mean, they still said game time decision, but.
Yeah, I'm seeing that 3 hours ago. All right. Well, then I guess we'll just assume he's going to play because that could have opened some things up as well, but looks like we won't get it.
Ultimately, for me, it just comes down to how good the value is by 8 o'clock for Kawhi, because there's a high percentage of the time where you're going to get like 57 points a piece from LeBron and Durant. You're going to get like 50 from Kawhi. And if you don't have high upside value, you're better off taking Kawhi there. But if you do have high upside value, then obviously you're better off getting to Durant and LeBron.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. So we got that out of the way. And then there's really only one more top tier guy we'll get to in the next game. We're going to operate a little bit differently on this slate. It only makes sense with 3 games. Where else are we going? We'll start with the Warriors because Guys like Quinn Cook, they're cheap. And that's kind of it. Like Andre Iguodala, I think I blew Josh's mind today when I said, guess how many shots Iguodala has taken over his last 5 games. He's like, I don't know. I'll lowball it 30. 12. 12 shots over his last 5 games. So he's averaging slightly over 2 attempts per game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Quinn Cook, I think the price tag's fine. The weird thing, though, is that even though it's a 3-game slate, there's actually guys around him that I like more. You know, you have, well, at least, so on DraftKings, you have Darren Collison, who is similarly priced, who I'd rather play. On FanDuel, Quinn Cook is like $900 less, so that's more appealing. But ultimately, I think it's a spot where he plays, 30 to 32 minutes. It's not a super appealing matchup, but he should do enough to where he doesn't really hurt you at that price. So I don't have a problem with Quinn Cook, but he's not someone I'm really excited to roster. And I feel the same way about Clay. I do think if you end up not having Durant in your lineup, then having Clay probably makes sense, just because between the two of these guys, you know that they're getting like all the usage on this team. Since Curry went out, you have a 33% usage rate for Clay. And if we assume that Golden State manages to stay in this game and score, 107 or 110 points, there's a pretty good chance that one of Durant or Thompson had a good game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be Durant, but we'll see. It's got to be one of them. Do you think this game stays close? Toronto's a really good team. It's a tough call, but really, if it does stay close, it's Durant or it's Clay, but it's likely Durant.
Right, and that's where I'm at as well. One thing that I do kind of think is worth mentioning is that because of the pace of this game, even if it does blow out, I think it's more likely to be like kind of a slow blowout, not, like over a halftime type thing.
I could see that as well. I mean, the Warriors, since Curry went down, so he went down. The last game he played was on the 8th of November. They're playing at the 4th slowest pace in the league. The 4th slowest pace in the league over that span. This is a Warriors team that has slowed things down a lot with Curry out, and you could say with Dre out as well, because again, he's only played 2 of those games. But yeah, the Warriors have the 11th worst defensive rating over that span as well, and their offensive rating ranks 15th, right in the middle of the league. So they're not a great team without these 2 guys, and it's showing. So I will be going to Durant here. I do think, though, even on this slate, I don't even know if it's a think thing. It's I pretty much know that LeBron and Kawhi have to be higher owned than him. Like I just don't see any. Definitely LeBron, undoubtedly. But what about Kawhi?
Yeah, I'm not sure there. I'll end up trusting our ownership projections on that one, just because there is the price gap. So I'm not really sure how people will go. You do have Durant coming off 2 70-point games, so
yeah,
that one will be interesting to see how the ownership projections end up, at the final update before lock.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Awesemo.com, by the way, if you want to get a free week, everything behind paywall, all of our premium content for free, completely free. Use the promo code in the bottom right corner. I don't know if I'm pointing left or right, but bottom right corner of your screen, deeper dive, all one word. You'll go on awesemo.com, click join now in the top right corner, pick out whatever plan you want. And then as you are checking out, you'll put in deeper dive and you won't have to pay a damn cent. So deeper dive, all one word. Check it out. Everything's free for a week. And if you like it, hopefully you'll stick around. Also, if you're enjoying the show, if you enjoy what we do here, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It helps us out considerably. We appreciate you. All right, Toronto, outside of Kawhi Leonard. Do you like Ibaka here? It's tough to like Lowry for me here. What are you doing outside of Kawhi Leonard?
Ibaka is my favorite play from Toronto here. He played 35 minutes against Memphis. Not expecting that again, but wouldn't be surprising at all to see him in the low 30s here in a spot where Valanciunas just is completely unnecessary. And Ibaka's price is just lower than it really should be. He's only 6,000 on FanDuel. He's 5,500 on DraftKings. He does take a hit in terms of production when he plays alongside Leonard, but he's still averaging over a fantasy point per minute alongside Kawhi this season. Still has a 22.5% usage rate with him on the floor. The reason he takes a hit is more so because when he plays without Kawhi, he's averaging like 1.4 fantasy points per minute. So I just think that Ibaka really in any format is just one of the top plays on the slate, point per dollar and upside per dollar. I don't really see a way to get away from Ibaka here.
I don't either. And I don't think you need to, actually. I think it's a decent spot. As you pointed out perfectly, with Joval, this is not a game where his services are going to be desperately required, right? I mean, I think you probably get, I don't know, 15 minutes from him, 16 minutes from here, maybe
Right. I
8.
mean, yeah. Um, I expect him to be productive when he's out there, but
Yeah, he always
just like,
is.
yeah, but like, what do you need him for?
You really don't. And even defensively, like you're not rim protection is less of a factor in this game. Anybody else for Toronto? Because that's it for me, really.
That's it for me too. I mean,
All right,
outside of the fact that obviously it's a 3-game slate, like nobody's
of
crazy,
course, no
but
one's
like
out of the question.
right, just talking about like liking guys or disliking guys. I don't really like getting to Lowry whenever Kawhi's healthy. He takes a pretty huge hit alongside Kawhi. Averages less than a fantasy point per minute, 17.5% usage, only a 32% assist percentage with Kawhi on the floor. So it's just really difficult for me to get to Lowry in a really slow paced game as well. So yeah, Ibaka, Kawhi, and then everyone else.
All right, let's talk about the Lakers and Pacers. I really prefer not to, but we have to do it anyway, and I'll have to listen to you tell me that Lonzo Ball's too cheap. Uh, you got him at home. Lakers at home, 5-point favorites, 219 total. I don't know. The Pacers play really down in pace. Josh and I had this conversation today. We were seeing different numbers. Maybe it's because he was looking at it with Oladipo off, and I was looking at it since Oladipo's been out, and we came up with different numbers because I ran it with or since Oladipo's been off, where they rank in pace, and they're 24th, and I think Josh had them up around 101. I have them at 98, but it's still, I think we can all agree on, it's still a pace down spot for the Lakers. Even though the Lakers are playing a little bit down in pace over the last couple weeks too, they're still a top 5 pace team on the year. Uh, what are we doing with LeBron? Let's get this out of the way first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the pace, I think it is obviously a pace down game here. But one thing that makes it a little bit better, at least, is that without Oladipo, that starting unit has not been as good defensively as they are when Oladipo's in there. So that's a benefit at least. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything to dislike about LeBron. He's going to play huge minutes, assuming the game's competitive. We know he can take over games at times. Not that we totally expect him to, but the upside's there, the floor's there. He's the guy that I want to play in cash games. I have no problem with him in tournaments outside of the fact that I think he's going to be probably higher owned than Durant, like we talked about. But yeah, nothing for me to dislike with LeBron here.
So our last update for ownership, and it updates 30 minutes before lock too. That's the final update. That's the one you want to get the closest look at. But the most recent update has LeBron at 43%, giving you a little inside look here on this 3-gamer. Kawhi at 35 and Durant at 30. So not a huge disparity between all three, but definitely between LeBron and Durant. If you're looking at 13, 15%, that's noticeable or notable on a 3-gamer. So stay tuned. If you're already a subscriber, you're going to want to pay attention. Obviously, 7:30 we'll get that update for sure. And that's going to play a big role in this. You're going to have to take guesses, right? You're going to have to project ownership for both of them. We're not going to know until we hit lock. So outside of LeBron, though, you've got Lonzo Ball. I've discussed my concerns with him. Even with Rondo off the floor, I haven't seen enough from him in terms of assisting opportunities. His touches are way down. His involvement's way down this year. It looks like it was a game time decision, but he went through shoot around, as you mentioned. So I guess we should expect him to play. Are you going back to the well with old Lonzo here?
I like him on DraftKings more than on FanDuel. It's not a priority just because I don't completely trust him. Obviously, like the minutes are volatile, but if he plays well, he should be able to get low to mid 30s in minutes, and he's only 5,700 on DraftKings. If 55 or 57 or 5,600 on DraftKings, yeah, he's just I think the price tag's too cheap for his upside there. There's a lot that can go wrong, but I think he's priced for it, so I have no issue with Lonzo, especially on DraftKings.
All right. I guess I don't have an issue with him. It's kind of like what you mentioned about Golden State, Toronto. I don't love any. I don't. You don't love like a Kyle Lowry or a Pascal Siakam, like those guys. If they end up in some lineups, all right, right. But Lonzo's not a guy I'm going to be actively seeking to get into my lineups. That's where I'm at on Lonzo.
Yeah, the point guard position is pretty weak today too, so that helps him
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, it's not that once we get to, I mean, there's obviously someone in the next game, the last
Yes.
game that I like quite a bit. I'm assuming you like him too, but that's kind of it. I mean, outside of okay, so we talked LeBron. That's clearly the biggest factor of this game right now, pre-lock. And then you got Lonzo. I'm not huge on him. If he falls into some lineups, okay. What about the rest of this team? Because now you're looking at some price points that are discounted. If Lonzo was out, my guess was that Ingram might actually start at the point. We've seen that a lot in the past. He won't be he clearly won't be a traditional point guard with LeBron on the court. But just in case, if we do get news that Lonzo looking more doubtful or this or that, I don't see it happening. But I think Ingram could start at the point. I don't think
Yeah,
Josh Hart's.
I would like Ingram a lot if Lonzo's out. I would also bump the minutes for Josh Hart and for Lance Stevenson.
Yep.
But if we assume Lonzo's in, I actually really like Kyle Kuzma here. And I'm hoping maybe he goes a little bit overlooked, but he's inexpensive on both sites. And his minutes are actually trending up. He played between 34 and 35 minutes against Orlando 2 games ago. He played 31 against Denver last game, despite the game blowing out. But one thing that we saw that I was pretty happy about, it didn't happen against Denver. But against Orlando, we saw the Lakers go small for a lot more minutes than they had been lately. Denver, you wouldn't expect that to happen against the center rotation of Plumlee and Jokic. But now you have Miles Turner and Sabonis for Indiana, both guys who the Lakers can go small against and match up with if they were to choose to do so. We saw early in the season Kuzma getting a bunch of time in small ball lineups at the 5. They went back to it a little bit against Orlando. And that just solidifies his minutes and makes him a little bit more productive. If you're going to get 34 minutes from Kyle Kuzma at this price point, I think he's a really good play.
I'm with you. You're getting him at I don't want to say a discount, but you're getting him at a decent price, right? Under 6K, mid 5K is not bad at all, especially with only 3 games on the slate. This is not a terrible spot whatsoever. Regardless of whether or not Lonzo plays, and honestly, like if you did look to get Durant and Leonard into some lineups, like wondering if it could work. Well, if Boban is starting, assuming Gortat is out, Josh and I had a big argument over that on this morning's show. If he is, and you get him at 3,500, and then you threw in like a Marvin Bagley and Kyle Kuzma, the lineup doesn't shape up as bad as you might suspect it would, because there actually is, while there's not a ton of value, there is actually a decent amount of that 5K talent. And the problem is Ibaka's in that price. You'd have to kind of find ways to get him in, because as you mentioned, guard might be one of the shallowest spots today, especially cheap.
Yeah, no question about that.
All right. Indiana. This team's just been a just absolute barren wasteland with Oladipo out of it. I mean, yeah, you have Sabonis, who's been outstanding. I mean, just incredible. He's putting up monster numbers on a night-to-night basis. And I mean monster per minute numbers, right? He's not cracking 70 fantasy points, but my God, has he been consistent. And then you have Tyreek Evans, who I have officially written him off, which means, you know what that means.
He's dropping 50 tonight when you don't
He's
have him.
dropping 50 exactly on a 3-game slate. You best believe it. So, and can we for a second talk about how utterly terrible he's been? I mean, it's been really bad, hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's been awful. But also, if you look at his numbers in those games that Oladipo has missed, he's not getting as much usage as we expected, I don't think, but that could in part be because he's shooting so poorly. But
Yeah.
he still leads the team with a 24.3% usage rate since Oladipo's injury.
That's why I keep playing him.
Right. He has a 40.7 true shooting percentage. Yeah. For context, overall this season it's 48.1. So and that's including, this handful of games where he's at 40%. So he's shooting really, really bad. He's still getting the opportunities. The minutes aren't great. Like, we've seen games where he doesn't play in the fourth quarter because either it's a blowout or because someone on the second unit goes nuts and he just doesn't come back in. But I still think you can project him for 27, 28 minutes. That's what we saw last game. And that's what I would expect him to play in, like a good scenario. So yeah, I mean, I still have interest in him here in a huge pace up spot. The rates are still there. It's just a matter of the ball not going in the basket for him, and that's not something I really care about when I'm trying to project forward and not worry about what happened in prior games.
Right. We just we just got a ton of news, and all of it's for tomorrow. So that's cool.
I was like, what did we possibly get a ton of news on?
Yeah, all of it's for tomorrow. That's pretty sweet. Anyway, I'm with you there. I've been with you there, and it hasn't been pretty. Like it's been ugly. But I don't know. 28 minutes on this slate, like it's against the Lakers. It's a soft matchup. There's nothing that concerns me here. How much Evans do you have right now?
I haven't crunched my lineups yet, but he wasn't in like the dummy optimal lineup I made, which doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, I've been projected for like 25, 30 or 25, 26 fantasy points, which isn't great, obviously, but I think it's okay. I think that especially at a weak small forward position on FanDuel where he's 5,100, he's probably more appealing there than he is on DraftKings.
I have him at 26%, and I crunched. I got him in like 25% on my initial crunch. So, yeah, he's another one. But going back to the conversation we just had, there are some 5K guys that you can work around and get Durant and Leonard in there. It's actually it's not tough to do. Obviously, all the stars need to align, but on those type of nights where you're going stars, scrubs, you need Durant, you need Leonard, you need these guys to put up huge numbers anyway just to have a chance. Like yesterday, I cashed easily and actually pretty high up. I only played 2 lineups I went ahead and went with Durant, or I'm sorry, Harden and Davis, but and I had Trey Burke in both lineups, right? And he was terrible. What a disaster that was. The Sixers finally blow a team out. What I'm getting at though was if you have that happen and the one high price guy like Harden explodes again, Davis gives you around 60 like he did, but then you get your Tim Frazier game. Or you get, I forget who else. I had Nance too, and he didn't have a great game either. So it really just comes down to, can you get those 2 top price guys to go off? And then even if 1 or 2 of your value guys, like if you're a 3-5 guy, 10Xs or something, it situates you really nice. And while Boban might only see, 18, maybe 20 minutes today, there's no question the guy can rack up 35 fantasy points. We've seen him do it a million times in the past, even if this might not be the most appealing matchup for someone that's 18 feet tall. So, yeah. Just thinking through the thought process here. What else do you have for the Pacers?
I mean, Sabonis on a per minute standpoint, you mentioned, is just absolute monster without Oladipo on the floor. 1.5 fantasy points per minute since his injury. The price tag's getting up there to where it starts to be concerning. But if he's going to play 24 to 26 minutes, I think he's fine. The problem, and I saw someone just mention it in premium chat, and I agree completely, is that power forward is actually a pretty deep position on this slate. So paying up for a Sabonis there might not be optimal in terms of roster construction, where you can save money and go to, an Ibaka or a Kyle Kuzma or something like that. But from a just raw points upside perspective, Sabonis is one of the, guys on the slate that's capable of scoring 50 points, which is valuable.
Yeah. It's also incredible because he's doing it in 26 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
23 minutes last game.
It's really difficult to responsibly project him for more than 26 minutes, even if you're trying to get his ceiling projection. But the nice thing is that he doesn't need that much more. So if Turner briefly rolls an ankle or picks up 2 early fouls and you just get 3 or 4 extra minutes from Sabonis, he crushes for you.
And all those minutes are going to Sabonis. No
right,
question.
Exactly. You only need one guy to have something weird happen or go wrong for a few minutes for Sabonis to become one of the better plays.
All right, quick hits here. JaVale McGee, Thaddeus Young, Darren Collison, Miles Turner. I actually like Turner, by the way, on draft.
I like Turner a lot.
I don't think we touched on it. Maybe you did. 6,200. I think it's a very fair price and a good matchup.
Yeah, I like Turner quite a bit.
The rest of the guys, go ahead.
Yeah, I like Turner a lot. I like Collison a lot. Both, I think, are better plays on DraftKings than FanDuel. On FanDuel, I would actually rather save $2,000 and go to Corey Joseph, even though he's kind of useless. than pay like 6,300 for Collison just
And
because saving.
Collison could give you that 20 fantasy point game too. Like, let's
Right.
not act like this dude's a nightly 35 shot.
Right, just because Collison's had a couple of good games in a row, and I've
Right.
been high on Collison for a lot of the season, so this isn't me being like biased against him, but he can certainly score less raw points than Corey Joseph, more than I would like to admit. So saving that money and just being able to pay for guys at other positions, I think makes a lot of sense on FanDuel. But where he's still sub 5K on DraftKings, I think it's a really good spot for him.
Yeah, and you also have $6,300 for Darren Collison, who has literally scored 0 points in games this year. I'm good. All right, you want to move on and close it out with Sacramento and the Clippers?
Yep.
Let's do it. By the way, live before lock is coming up. It's at 7:00 though. We got a bit of a window, and I'm going to tell you why. Adam, you want to tell them why?
You have somewhere to go?
Oh, I got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I got somewhere to go. Anyway, let's move on. As I said, live before lock, coming up, not right after this, but it's going to be coming up at 7:00 to 8:00. And that, of course, will be with your boys. Who is it? Oh, no, sorry. It's Eddie and Josh. I got mixed up because Josh mentioned it earlier today, and I think the names were mixed up in my head. Eddie and Josh, of course, my fault. And Three Fellas Talking Football, myself, Andrew Barron, and Ben Rasa. That's going to come on around like 7:30. We're going to break down the entire showdown slate, which is a really good, it's funny, a really good slate. No, it's a really good game. If you're going to play a one-gamer, this Dallas New Orleans game is pretty appealing. So if you're watching live before lock, getting ready for NBA, head over to Three Fellas Talking Football afterwards and catch the end when we kind of put a bow on it and wrap up all of our thoughts from the show. Or tune in at 7:30 Eastern time, and we will take you up to that 8:30 kickoff. All right, Adam. Last game here. What do you say we do it? Let's go. Sacramento, LA Clippers. Clippers 2.5-point favorites on the road. 236 total. You're talking about the second fastest paced team in the league and the Kings, the ninth fastest paced team in the Clippers. They both definitely like to run. Let's start with Sacramento and talk about just the wealth. Who would have thought? Last year there was a time where there wasn't a single, actually even I think this year at one point, where there wasn't a single Kings player above 5K. Last year almost the whole season. De'Aaron Fox now. You've got Marvin Bagley, who's cut into Willie Cauley-Stein's minutes and is doing big things with it. He's looked excellent. His price is still cheap. You've got Bogdan Bogdanovic, who has looked solid, and he's played 30-plus minutes in 2 of his last 3, 28 in the one where he didn't play 30 minutes. I tell you what, man, I like this team, and you're getting them all at a very affordable price point.
Yeah, and even on FanDuel, for a while, we saw where the Kings were really underpriced overpriced on FanDuel, but today I think that they're reasonably priced everywhere. I love Cauley-Stein here. The game logs are ugly, but he picked up. He was in foul trouble 2 games ago. Lost a ton of playing time there. They got blown out in their last game against Utah. I still think even if you want to take a couple of minutes off his projection, I think you still in a competitive game where he doesn't foul, you get like 32 to 34 minutes from him. He's averaging over a fantasy point per minute this season. It's a nice matchup. So there's nothing for me not to like about Cauley-Stein. He's really cheap on both sides. So I like him a lot. I like De'Aaron Fox. He's my favorite point guard.
Me too.
Playing 34, 36 minutes a night still, scoring, picking up assists, doing everything. Not the easiest matchup in terms of the Clippers, are a quality defense, but the minutes should be there. The opportunity is certainly there. So I like him a lot. Buddy Hield minutes are a little bit less certain than they were earlier in the season since we're seeing Bogdanovic play more, but you still certainly can see 32 to 34 minutes from Hield, and his price tags come down. So I like him. Bogdanovic I think is fine. Bagley's getting his minutes every night now, basically since they said they were going to fire Dave Yeager if he didn't play him. And we're seeing sometimes he gets center minutes over Harry Giles. Sometimes he takes minutes from Bjelica. But regardless, on a nightly basis now, he's getting 28 to 30 minutes, and he's been productive with them. So I really just like this entire Sacramento team. And with it only being a 3-game slate, I'm a lot more willing to roster 3 guys from one team than I am on full slates.
Yeah, and he played 10 minutes next to Cauley-Stein last game.
Yeah. He's for most of the season he's been a 4, and that's why he wasn't getting minutes. He was splitting minutes with Bjelica. Now they've cut back Bielitsa's minutes, and sometimes they give him minutes over Harry Giles as the backup center. So it hasn't really had it hasn't had a huge impact on Cauley Stein. It's just had an impact on the guys around him, and it's varied by game, but he's gotten his minutes kind of regardless.
So what are you making of Cauley Stein's minutes here? Just the blowouts, you think?
Yeah, blowout last game.
What about
last game
Warriors?
Warriors, he lost like 8.5 minutes with his third foul in the second quarter, and then ran a kind of abbreviated rotation in the third and fourth quarter, which may or may not have been a result of his fourth foul. I'm not sure, but he certainly was in foul trouble in the first half of that game. And then the Jazz game, he left 3.5 minutes before halftime after he picked up his second foul, and then the game blew out. So I still think that, Cauley Stein plays at least 32 minutes if it is competitive and he manages not to foul people with the upside for more.
I'm with you. I don't think the second foul in the first half had much to do with it though, because they played through 2 fouls with like 4 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah. I'm not sure that had anything to do with it. But the game against Golden State, he picked up his third, like 50 seconds coming into the second quarter.
Yeah, they may have just gone. I don't know. The Utah one is interesting because Giles just came in and finished the game out. He played almost like 16 minutes straight, but it doesn't really matter. And then it just washed out. They had the whole bench in there. It didn't make a difference. But I do this with teams where we like a bunch of guys from them. Let's prioritize them. I'll throw them at you first. I have Bagley and Fox kind of neck and neck because Bagley's price point is so appealing. But I also have Cauley Stein up there as well. And then Bogdanovich.
I have Cauley Stein, Fox, and Hield all neck and neck, and then Bagley, and then Bogdanovich, and then Bielitsa.
Okay. Yeah, look, I have no issue at all with Hield. But I think I'm leaning Bagley over him. Just obviously not the same position, but similar price point. I mean, the problem here is that you can't go wrong, but then you can go wrong on the results. Like it's hard. You know what I mean? Well, seriously, because Buddy Hield's 5,700, Marvin Bagley's 5,300, Willie Cauley Stein's 5,900, Bogdanovich is 5,200. They're all cheap, but not all of them are going to have a tournament winning upside tonight.
Right. And I think it's important to make sure that you don't negatively correlate this team in your lineups too. Like if you want to take a shot on a 3-game slate on Harry Giles somehow doing well, that's fine, but don't play Bagley. Don't play Bagley with Bielitsa. Probably don't play him with Cauley. He's okay with Cauley Stein, but I'd rather not. Definitely don't play him with Bielitsa. Hield and Bogdanovich probably isn't great together. Stuff like that you just want to make sure you're paying attention to.
Yeah, it's tough. It's honestly even tough to figure out who's losing minutes from who each night because so many of them are playing so many different positions, right? Like
that's why I kind of hesitated. Like Bagley and Cauley Stein don't really take minutes from each other, but they could. We don't know. Potentially could, and they could take rebounds and stuff from each other. Bogdanovich doesn't always take minutes from Hield, but sometimes he does. Bagley always takes minutes from Bielitsa.
Right. Like it's not ridiculous to think, oh, maybe Marvin Bagley gets some minutes at the 5 while Montrezl Harrell's playing long stretches there. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think that would happen, but we've just seen so much movement here in terms of the rotations. Look, Bagley's 6'11". This isn't some like 6'8" dude. Like he's no Thad Young at power forward. He's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, I projected 32 to 34 minutes from Cauley Stein, with Bagley getting around 6 at center, and then Giles getting like 8 to 10.
Okay, how many minutes you have for Bagley projected?
30.
Yeah, me too. 30. And the only thing I worry about a little bit is he played deep into that blowout. I guess you know what? Jaeger emptied the bench entirely, other than Harry Giles, but the bottom of the bench, like Labissiere, Ben McLemore, Troy Williams, Yogi Ferrell, and Giles. That's how he closed the last half of the fourth quarter out, and Bagley came off. So that makes sense. Bagley wasn't out there in blowout run, so that's good to know. Let's get to the rest of this game, the other side of it, and then we will close it out. We got the Clippers. We got, you know what? Why don't we do this? We'll talk about potentially Boban Marjanovic. So many Viches and Bogdans and such. But let's talk about the backcourt, because you got Lou Williams, you got Gilgeous Alexander, you got Pat Bev, who is clearly losing minutes lately, and the team continues to win. So I'm not sure I see that ticking back up anytime soon. But then you've got Avery Bradley, who you wouldn't know it from his fantasy totals, but the guy's playing huge minutes every night. It's I think we're starting to see this backcourt round into form, right? Gilgeous-Alexander is pretty much locked into 29, maybe 30 minutes a night. And then Lou Williams, we broke this down this morning looking at his minutes. I put him back up to like 25, 26 today, but it is the second of a back to back. And he had lost some minutes recently, maybe because he shot 2 of 13, maybe because of some blowouts. What do you make of this backcourt? Because there's a ton of moving parts.
Right. So, I mean, as far as Beverly and Gilgeous-Alexander and Bradley go, they're guys that, if I get them in crunches of 150 lineups, then that's fine. It's a perfectly fine matchup and everything, but they're not guys I'm going to prioritize just because none of them play huge minutes. None of Bradley plays the most minutes, and he is awful. So there's just nothing I'm prioritizing there. Lou Williams is interesting because he only played 22 minutes last game. We saw Thornwell pick up 12 minutes, and his minutes are just going to fluctuate more so now that Bradley's back and now that they're insisting on playing, a random guy, whether it's Thornwell or Tyrone Wallace at times in this rotation. But when Lou Williams is playing well, I would expect him to still at least get to 26, maybe 28 minutes. And for tournaments, that's really what you care about, is you want him to have the upside to really outperform his salary. And I think he still has that, especially in this matchup where he should get more possessions per minute anyway. So I do like Williams, especially on DraftKings. He's only 5,600, and he has point guard eligibility, which is really, really nice on the slate. So he's my favorite guy out of the backcourt there.
All right. I am with you on that. Lou Williams concerns me a bit. I think you always have the upside just because he is a high usage player. I mean, just you look at last game, 22 minutes. He's still got up. He's played 39 combined minutes over his last 2 games with 27 shots. Lou's going to chuck, and that matters to me because if he does get hot on a short slate like this, an abbreviated slate, and he plays 27 minutes because he's just crushing, then he's the type of guy that can give you quality numbers, and his price is very reasonable. But he's got a 31.7% usage rate. So it's not something you sleep on. If he does end up playing 30 minutes, which we've seen when he's shooting well, or when he's just producing, Lou Williams is a guy that could put up monster numbers at a very discounted cost. So what about the rest of this squad? You know what? We'll do this and then we'll be done. Let's talk. We got to go in pieces with the Clippers, right? So let's go with Tobias and Gallo, because I don't really think I have any interest in either of them at their prices.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And by not having any interest, I mean, they're not someone that I'm prioritizing in lineups. It's not that I dislike them. I think
you're not Xing them out of your player pool either. Right.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. If I get them, I'm not upset about it. If I make a lineup, it's oh, it has Tobias Harris. I'm not I need to rework this. It's just, I'm not prioritizing them. I like Sabonis at a similar price point. I like Ibaka for less. I like Kuzma for less. So yeah, both of them, I think that where Gallinari is a lot cheaper, he's 1,400 cheaper on FanDuel, I prefer him to Harris, but I think that they both project pretty similarly.
I just prefer Gallinari over Harris anyway. I think he's what, $1,700 cheaper on DraftKings, because Harris is up at 8,200. I'll just take that savings. Look, Harris has been good. He's absolutely been consistent. There's no question. But he doesn't have the ceiling that I want to pay above 8K for, and that's kind of what it comes down to.
Right. Exactly.
All right, Adam. Yeah, that's it. Let's close it out. Where are you at on Harrell? Because his price has come up, but he's been so damn good.
I like him a lot, and there's something that makes me kind of like him and Boban even more here. We'd seen in games recently where Boban was Gortat was in, but Boban was getting a handful of minutes off the bench. Doc Rivers was actually playing Harrell alongside Boban, and this Kings front court is the perfect spot to do that, where you could see Boban and Harrell play alongside each other against a Cauley-Stein, Bagley type front court.
Yep.
And that just makes it so you feel even better about the minutes for both of these guys, because it's not like it's not like you can only get 18 from Boban if Harrell plays 30. I think that you could get maybe 20 to 22 from Boban and still get 30 to 32 from Harrell potentially.
Right. It's just, can he keep up with the pace? And I think he's good. I think Gortat would have played 18 minutes anyway if he's healthy. So right.
Yeah. I mean, I think Boban plays 18 minutes regardless if Gortat's out.
Agreed.
So I don't really care. Like even in 18 minutes, he's a good play at his price. It's just that I think his ceiling might actually be a little bit higher because it's such a big front court that he could play alongside Harrell.
I'm with you. I guess that's it, huh?
Yep.
Harrell or Sabonis?
Sabonis on FanDuel. DraftKings, I literally have them projected for like the same score.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm going Harrell, just because when I have to make a decision like this and I have to break the tie, I will go with the minutes.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
have
I
no
agree.
problem doing that. All right, well, that'll do it for us. Thanks as always for hanging out. Remember, Live Before Lock, Josh and Eddie coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to take you to 8. An hour should be plenty enough time. And then at 7:30, it'll overlap a little bit. Three fellas talking football, breaking down this Saints-Dallas game with myself, Andrew, and Ben. That'll go to around 8:20. So you want to swap. If you want to switch over after Live Before Lock, come hang out with us leading up to the showdown slate. And we will see. Oh, I'm going to be on the DK Sweat Show in 4 minutes. So that's happening as well. And then I got a podcast tonight that the early bird, that'll be out too. Adam's going on a date tonight. So wish him luck. We'll be back here tomorrow. 11 game. Okay. We'll see you tomorrow, man. I can't get anything together. 11 games tomorrow. Deeper dive. Good luck.